board took action to accept the resignation classified employee number 7600000322 in lieu of termination. Have a motion, please, to adopt our agenda. So moved. Second. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Changes, we're going to move, it's okay, number 18 to rec board number 12.
Okay.
We will going to take 17, D, E, and F off the agenda. And I believe that is it.
Is there a call for a vote for adopting the agenda as moved and seconded with those changes? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 4-0. Okay, our first item tonight is we have a recognition of Bruce Hopping, Inspiration for Visual and Performing Arts of the Year Award. Artist of the Year Award.
Jan is introducing the right
Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Okay.
President Vickers, members of the board, Dr. Gloria, members of cabinet, assorted guests. It gives me great pleasure to talk about a legend in this town, and that's Mr. Bruce Hopping. When I first got to this district a couple of years ago, I would come to board meetings and I would hear Mr. Hopping's stories of his amazing past and his service to his country and his amazing contributions to surf and swim and physical fitness and the foundation that he started with the Greek traditions of academia and physical fitness. And he would give all kinds of ideas about what we should do in the district, and one of them was that we should have a perpetual trophy that recognizes the artists of the year at the high school and put it in the lobby. He said we should have a visual and performing artist of the year, and it should be something that's perpetual, that's inspired by the Greeks, and he that would be something that would be we could see year in and year out. And we already have in place our Excellence Award at the end of the year, and there's a medallion winner for visual arts and for performing arts, so it fit real nicely. So I took the idea that he had. He wanted sort of a Grecian urn, not urn, a vase actually, that would be in the lobby. That was his. I took the idea over to our art department, and so that takes some explaining. So it does not look like a Greek vase, does it? We took it to the art department, and they were working on. Took it to the ceramics teacher, and they sort of customized the idea and came up with a Greek wall relief instead. And that's what they wanted to work on, and that's where they took it. So they came up with the wall relief. We have that installed in the Artist Theater, and we have our first medallion winners are on there engraved. Their likenesses are engraved, and their names are there. And now there's a plaque to the side of it that recognizes Bruce Hopping as the inspiration for this. And I would just like to recognize Bruce for that. I have a photo of the artwork that hangs in the lobby, and then I also have, I will read to you what the inscription says. This wall relief of the Laguna Beach High School Visual and Performing Artist of the Year was inspired by longtime Laguna Beach resident Bruce Hopping, founder of the Kalos Kagathos Foundation. Mr. Hopping served this country in World War II as a U.S. Army pilot and in the Korean War at the Naval Training Center. He's respected worldwide and locally for his contributions to the sports of swimming, water polo, and surfing. The Kalos Kagathos Foundation was formed in 1953 to support the Greek ideals of physical fitness, arts, and academics. This relief and display was created in 2016 by Laguna Beach High School visual arts teachers. So thank you for the inspiration and for all you do for
Appreciation for you presented to Bruce Hopping, Inspiration for the Visual and Performing Artist of the Year. Thank you for your support and dedication to the students and community of the Laguna Beach Unified School District. And this is a copy of what's on the plaque. So
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you very much. Can I make a word, a couple of?
Sure. It wouldn't be resolving time if you didn't. Okay with this?
Yes.
Thanks.
I do thank the board and the principal for this honor, and I'm grateful for the recognition of the foundation's contributions to not only the visual and performing arts, but also, according to your proclamation, we have taken high school teams into different sports, swimming, water polo, and surfing all over the world. And the primary function of this is not just going to a foreign nation and get the award to serve, but have a social and cultural imprint, as the ancient Greeks emphasized. Regard the body as the most beautiful of creations, and if you do have that self-respect, you will extend that to other persons and also the environment and the creatures therein. So we have our teams hosted by families of the sport that we're going to, and we emphasize living with families so that they get a social and cultural imprint of the nation where they're being hosted. Now, I'm going to introduce Jeff Muir and Christina Cohn, who are doctoral students at UCI now, and they'd like to emphasize the foundation's work, and I thank you for consideration. Keep the faith.
All right, I don't know that we have much that we can add to Bruce's wonderful, there's Karina, my wife, and Bruce's good
Karina,
friend.
come up. Karina is a doctoral student also. She's the wife of Jeff, and she comes from Hong Kong. So we got a couple of people that want to make some comments about the foundation, which they're intimately involved with.
Well, I think we just want to emphasize that Bruce has many plans, as I'm sure you can imagine, both to honor his foundation's kind of double emphasis on the nobility of mind with the academics, with the humanities and the arts at Laguna Beach High, but also physical fitness. So he's got lots of plans that were mentioned in the introductory comments, and he's working vigorously on those every day, as you can imagine. So, do you want to say anything?
I would just like to say a few things regarding the foundation. I'm also a doctoral student over at UC Irvine in the Department of Classics. I first came into contact with Bruce about 7 years ago while working for a nonprofit out of Boston, Massachusetts. And eventually I came out here to do that work, and I sort of, as a lot of you probably have experienced, fell in love with the Southern California environment and lifestyle. Found out that the University in Irvine actually had a wonderful doctoral program in the field of study, which I do. And so I moved out here, and the more I got to know Bruce, the more I came to admire him. And at first, of course, it was the World War II stories and having survived on the raft in the Pacific, which all have obviously given him an incredible integrity of character. And the more I got to know him, the more I realized that in his own lifestyle, he articulated the foundation's real goals and sort of the purpose of its doctrine, which, as he sort of communicated a little while ago, for the ancient Greeks, there was very much this notion that kalos, which is the beautiful, and agathos, which is the good, were somehow intimately related. And that by having self-respect for your own body and making sure you're in a premier state of physical fitness, you were also going to make sure that you were most mentally productive, academically disciplined, etc. And so the idea of mind-body health are integral to the foundation. And it's in the future, as he mentioned, he's going to do a lot of work with it. But I'm absolutely honored to be here with Bruce receiving this award tonight, and I'm delighted to call him a friend. And whether it's been walking down to the beach every day, or running barefoot in the sand, or feeding the seagulls, or standing up for the environment when it came to certain developments, or coming down to city council meetings or school board meetings perhaps, which I've never attended, and sometimes being the voice of dissent. I think the motivation behind it has always been clear. Bruce wants to preserve the integrity of the Laguna Beach community, like making sure that people respect themselves, the people around them, the environment, so that we can keep Laguna Beach a healthy, fit place for living that will continue to be a promoter of the arts.
You want to say, make a
I
comment?
think that must be the last word, Bruce. Anything that you'd like to say? I speak for all of us collected here with a great thank you for this. This is absolutely wonderful. And yeah, Bruce has had a little nick, but he's getting back to full fighting weight here, and he's looking pretty good, so he'll be back.
Okay, now's the time on our agenda for public comment for items not on the agenda. And Rosie Morales?
I think we're.
Morale, I blew it.
Morale.
Yeah,
Morale.
Morale,
It's
sorry.
Italian, it's okay.
Oh, okay, before you start, I wanted to just, for all the speakers this evening, we allow 3 minutes to speak, and there is a timer down here, and when it turns to yellow, you have 30 seconds left to make sure you wrap up your comments so that we have time for everyone to speak. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go first, so. I feel like we're trying to forget about what had happened over break, as well as religious, social, and political tensions that has also made it inside of our little bubble. This incident happened, and today I think marked a turning point in our school, or at least within me, in which we acknowledged the awful mistakes a few boys made. We had a guest speaker today, and his name is Keith Hawkins. He grew up in a violent environment, but still learned how to prevail. His father was abusive, and his mother made some bad choices, and he said that children tend to follow the actions of parents rather than what they said. If we see negativity and wrongdoing, we will act with negativity and wrongdoing. First off, before I go into the children portion, I want to talk briefly about adults. There's a huge responsibility being a parent. Sometimes it can be too much, but they must never give up, and they're not allowed to. No one has ever said that it was easy going into, and I know that you all have so much on your plate, but all I'm asking is for you guys to be role models. The simplest of things, negative things, that any parent does overrides the good that parents try to install into the minds of the future generation. I mean, even without the help of parents, we're being molded by society and the media. But the parents can try to better themselves by doing positive and good things as well as say them, and tend to eliminate the factor of contradiction. Keith said at the beginning of his speech that you don't have knowledge until you're ready for knowledge. You must come wanting to be there for you to actually learn. He then went into a few different stories regarding other schools. One of them was about a freshman girl who was asked to formal in front of a bunch of people. He gave her roses and made a sweet poster until he turned the poster around. On the back side of the poster, there are multiple pictures of that girl nude. No one around did or say anything to help the girl but film, take pictures, and laugh. The majority of human nature has been mean lately, and tension has been extremely high, but the human spirit people don't see by their race, gender, religion, political party, or views, or ethnicity, are providing a new and better environment for the future generations to grow and blossom. After giving us example of terrible things that had happened, he did show us what we needed to leave a lasting impact on our community. We need to try to forgive people. We need to try to understand why people do the things they do. We need to stop making excuses. Boys being boys should be a connotation of good rather than bad. That cannot be an excuse for wrongdoing or horrible mistakes. Sorry won't change anything, but actions will. To sum this all up, I want to end with one idea that really hit me hard. It is about the things that are temporary versus permanent. For example, we ASB students spend so much time on our posters this week regarding love and kindness, but 100 posters are temporary. We want to create a permanent, loving, caring, and respectful environment. Keith inspired many today that it is possible to create this environment in open-mindedness, but it all starts with the parents and how you choose to guide us.
So to elaborate on what Chloe said today, a man named Keith Hawkins came and gave 2 assemblies to our school. It was unbelievable to see the impact he had on the kids. When we went back to our 4th period classes after the assemblies, kids were in tears, kids were volunteering to share the impact he had on them, and it was great to see. One of the things that stood out to me, he told a story in both assemblies about one of his past assemblies at a different school. and he had a kid come up to the up to the front of everybody, and he said, "Who had a huge impact on you in your high school career?" And he said, "My friend Nathan." So Nathan came up, and he's like, "If you had 1 minute to tell Nathan something, what would you say?" He went on to tell a story about they were in 7th grade. They were bike riding together. He said it was a very tough time for him. So after he dropped Nathan at his house, he went into his garage. He grabbed a rope. He hung it around the bicycle rack. He was about to hang himself, and then Nathan texted him, said, "My mom just made dinner. You want to come over and eat some dinner and we can finish our homework?" He went over, did the homework, ate some dinner, and never thought of doing that again. So stories like that he told to us that left a lasting impact, and absolutely I think will change the future of our student body.
So yeah, as they said, Keith definitely did leave a lasting impact on everyone, I think. I talked to a lot of people after the assemblies, and he also spoke to a group of students during 5th period and the ASB classes during 6th period. And I didn't talk to a single person that had a negative thing to say. Everyone had something positive to say about the speaker, and he left us all laughing and crying, and he just had a really positive impact on the school, and the things that he said really stuck home for everyone, or hit home for everyone and stuck with us. And a couple things that he talked about were things that are temporary versus things that are permanent. And I talked to him a while after school about things like this, and we talked about how temporary things are something like someone's bad opinion of you. And one of the students during 5th period talked about how he told his coach on his team that one of his teammates had done something that was really upsetting and just not good for the team overall. And a lot of the kids called him a snitch. But one teammate came up to him and said, "Thank you, that really upset me, and I'm glad that you told someone about it." And so the bad opinions that someone will have on you or will have on something that you did are temporary, but the good actions that you have and the effects of it are permanent. And I feel like he really stuck that into our minds, and everyone I talked to did have a good positive experience today, and I feel like everyone's going to be able to keep that with them throughout the rest of the year and throughout the rest of our lives. So
Overall, there are plenty of kids at our school that want to make change and are willing to do things to make change. And yes, there are a few kids who have done some awful things, but as a student body, the seniors and juniors and even the underclassmen are ready to start making changes, and I think today was a great start for that. So
Keith was an incredible speaker. I actually spent like 3 hours with him today, so it was really cool. So I went to the first assembly, and then I went to my 3rd period, then I went back so I can ask him a few questions personally, and I recorded it, and it was really cool to actually have a one-on-one experience with him and hear everything that he had to say, because I know he had a limited time. I mean, it was an hour, but there was just so much more that he could say, and he made me feel really accomplished as a person, and he complimented me as a human being, and that's not something that you get all the time, so it was really cool. Thank you.
thank you guys.
Then Chucking?
Lieutenant Lynn, Ivor and Noah Shucking.
Pardon me?
Ivor and Noah Ivor Shucking is there
Right,
too.
there's 2 cards.
Okay, come on Noah.
So I wanted to speak first again. My name is Ivor Shucking, and thank you for allowing me to speak here. We're all together. I'm Ivor, this is Lynn, this is Noah. We have lived here for 17 years, very happily in Laguna Beach. I've been commuting for the last 8 years from Pasadena. It's because we think it's a wonderful place to live, and we're very happy that Noah goes to Laguna Beach High School. The reason we are speaking today, however, is related to the racial incidents that have happened recently. And I wanted to make 3 points, really, that I think are the main points. Number one, the goal really from our seat is that we're trying to focus more on going forward, trying to understand that the goal going forward is to protect the future as opposed to punishing the past. We need to be looking forward with a compass, number one. Number two, we're most concerned about the severity and the frequency of racial incidents going forward. Given our understanding how recent incidents have been dealt with. And last but not least, we have some positive recommendations that we think will provide a compass in addressing some of these future incidents. What's the game plan? When I think of the game plan, what's always resonated with me is a lot of the incidents that we're discussing are involving sports athletes at the high school. We've all been a family very close to sports, been a very positive part of our lives. Noah was very happy playing freshman high school football here at Laguna Beach. But there's a deeper story when it gets to sports. We see some of the tragedy that's related to the National Football League. We see it with Baylor University. These places are under the spotlight now for cultural flaws that are very heavily underneath the microscope. And I think it's important that people know that many times athletes believe they're held to a lower standard because of a culture of winning at all costs in society. It's different if you're an athlete as long as you're winning. And sometimes people are willing to maybe let someone get away with something that maybe they wouldn't otherwise if they weren't a good athlete. I have read the Laguna Beach High School Student Handbook for the conduct of code and ethics for athletics. I think it's important to note these are great 12 very nice points, and I'm sure it's a good thing to hope and strive for. But I don't think this really addresses what actually happens in athletes' daily lives. I want to give a very strong example of someone that has inspired me. Coach Charlie Strong, he's a football coach at the University of South Florida. He has 5 simple core values. He asks every potential recruit, if you want to play for me, these are minimum standards. If you don't want to meet these standards, don't play for me. 5 standards: attend class, no drugs, no stealing, no harm to women. These are very simple rules. It's very clear. The players know what they're getting into.
He has my time too.
These are very clear and specific. One thing I did mention is the word no racism didn't come into that. Why is that? Because there's never any tolerance for racism. There is never a reason to tolerate or minimize racism by any means. If I made a lame joke about race at work, I'd be fired on the spot, and I should be. We need to strive for the best in human beings, not the worst. So how do we finish up? What can we as human beings and adults do? Number one, leadership, adult leadership, that clearly lays out minimum standards. Very clear. Number two, like Coach Strong, number two, immediate accountability. Leaders must be willing to enforce consequences and lose games. Lose games over the short term to make sure that we instill a culture that the students, the athletes, the parents, and the community are proud of. That's sustainable. Not this winning at all costs type of attitude that we find in society. And last but not least, transparency. I would argue that the district must act promptly and get information to the community promptly so that we believe that delays and incomplete information leads to much more controversy and allows gossip to grow, as opposed to dealing with something immediately, which will only get worse over time, spread like a cancer. We recognize racial bullying is always going to happen. We cannot stop it. However, we believe the methods that the district has been using is more of the same, and we've noticed that since Noah's been here through the district. And I would argue, as Mr. Einstein once said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and somehow expecting different results. In the infamous words of Martin Luther King, one should not measure life by how high you reach, but it's how far you've come. And we do think there's some progress that can be made. And we do have some suggestions, and my wife has a brochure on restorative practices that we think would be a good first step. And we'd be very grateful if people would at least give it a shot and read some of the things that we have. My son wanted to say something.
So hello, my name is Noah Schicking. I'm a student here at LBHS Senior, so my time's almost up. It's a little crazy. I was a little kid, now I'm, oh my god, college! And so I just want to say, I've heard Keith Hawkins say, and I believe it was a beautiful speech, because I believe it was a great first step. I believe that in this incident, we have to talk about two things, bullying and race. And I believe the school's done a great job talking about bullying, because that's important. I believe we also need to talk about race, because race is a hard thing to talk about. You don't want people to feel bad about who they are for their skin color. You don't want people to feel bad because they're a certain skin color. And so I believe that we need to focus on that, because I see a lot of students who really want to make a difference at the school, but just don't know how to talk about the idea of race, the concept of race. And so I believe that school moving forward should try through social studies classes, through English classes, just talk more about race and just see more about who we are as a country and who we are and just how to talk about it constantly. It's an important issue, and I believe. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Laura Yeager. Is that, you have two cards, so I guess you're speaking twice.
About that same issue.
Okay, that's,
Hi, I'm Laura Jager. I don't have a child at the high school, but I do live here in town. We've lived here for 25 years. We saw an article in the New York Times. I'll just read you the article. Teenagers who vandalize historic Black schoolhouse are ordered to read books, by Christine Hauser from the New York Times from February 8th. After 5 teenagers defaced a historic Black schoolhouse in Virginia with racist and anti-Semitic graffiti last year, a judge handed down an unusual sentence. She endorsed a prosecutor's order that they read 1 book each month for the next 12 months and write a report about it. But not just any books. They must address some of history's most divisive and tragic periods. The teenagers can read Night by Elie Wiesel to learn about the Holocaust. The teenagers can crack open Maya Angelou's landmark 1969 book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, for an unsparing account of the Jim Crow South. They can also dive into The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini, a captivating tale about 2 boys from Afghanistan. Those books were among the 35 works of literature that the judge, Adelina Jacob, ordered the unidentified teenagers, ages 16 and 17, in London County to choose from after they pleaded guilty to spray painting the Ashburn Colored School, a dilapidated 1-room 19th century schoolhouse that had been used by Black children during segregation in Northern Virginia. So I brought a copy of the article to suggest it to the board, and
thank you. You turned in 2 cards, are you wanting to speak on a second card topic, or are you?
sure. So again, I'm Laura Jager. I do have a child at the TOW campus attending the CLC school. I'm not sure if the entire board is familiar with the CLC school, but it's an alternative school that was started in the 70s by parents who wanted something different in Laguna Beach and wanted to be involved in their school. So the same teachers had been there for a long time, and a new teacher started last year, and this is her 2nd year. And I'm here because the teacher has been told that her contract might not be renewed. And I represent the CLC school in saying that we think this is a wrong choice, that we think this teacher represents what CLC is supposed to be. I don't know what the checks and balances are of this kind of decision, but that's why I'm here tonight and hoping that I can bring it to your attention, that the parents who are involved at the school and who are on site at the school and observing the teacher every single day, because that's the type of school it is, are happy with the teacher. And the children are happy with the teacher. When you ask the children about the teachers, 2 quotes that I got. One child said, she was a 3rd grader at the time, so she'd been in school a little while, and she said, she makes me want to try my best at school. Before I just came to see my friends. And a 2nd child said, she's so excited about learning, it makes me excited too. I invite you to come and observe her teaching. I don't know if one person's opinion is the only opinion that gets to decide this. I would think that there's a system that looks at facts and the opinions of the, I guess we're the clients of the school as the parents. And so that's why I'm bringing it up to the board.
Thank you. Thanks. Jay Grant?
Thank you. My name is Jay Grant. I have lived in Laguna Beach 47 years. Been president of the Sawdust Festival the past 2 years. And I've worked with hundreds of kids in this city through coaching and writing and counseling. Concerning the racial incident on this Valentine's Day that we celebrate love, I would hope that forgiveness and reconciliation and peace and grace and compassion that has always characterized Laguna Beach would win out in this unfortunate incident where these kids have failed. Fact of the matter is, all of us in this room have failed at one time or another, some of us rather badly, but many of us have received help and forgiveness because someone stood up for us. There were good people who did not give up on us. I'm grieved that Bosco's family has suffered through all of this, but I'm also grieved that there's been an especially harsh judgment, in my opinion, upon some of these kids without all the facts known. I've spoken to some of the parents and kids involved, and they've all greatly suffered personal humiliation and deeply regret what has happened. Appropriate discipline with mercy and the restoration of these kids as a goal should be applied. But where there is wounding, healing is needed. In this case, in Bosco's family, healing is needed. In the lives of these kids and their families, healing is needed. And in our beloved city, healing is needed. Again, on this Valentine's Day, I pray that love and mercy win out. Thank you very much.
Kelly Schroeder?
Hello. I'm Kelly Schroeder. I first moved to Laguna in 1974. I attended kindergarten at Top of the World and was lucky enough to send my kids back there when it was time for them. I have a daughter that's a senior and a daughter that's a junior. And unfortunately, I'm here tonight to share my experience with you all. I can remember being a child being bullied in this school. My parents got divorced. My mom was a single mom that didn't do very well. We lived in the apartments behind the Sandpiper, and I was constantly picked on for it. As I got older, one of my brother's older classmates, it was a young lady that went to school here. She committed suicide after being bullied so many times, and I always have that in my memory. I was a substitute teacher in this town for years, thinking that I wanted to work in this town. I really wanted to get back into this town. I wanted to help make this town the place that I knew it to be in my heart. And I have to say, I was not always treated very well as a substitute. I had people say mean things to me, which one girl wanted to know how long it took me to get to school, implying that I was from out of town. And I said, well, I don't know, I didn't time my drive from Bluebird. At that point, she sat down and didn't bug me anymore. And I really got this elitist feeling from a lot of my experience being here in Laguna Beach. I now work in the Santa Ana Unified School District as a high school teacher. And I have to say, there are times when people say things and things come up and I want to defend Laguna. And I can't because of my experiences. And I have students telling me that they heard people calling them wetbacks and beaners. And the racism is not just the problem, it's bullying along with the words that go along with, it's just hurtful. So, you know, I've heard some good things here, restorative justice, I do believe in it wholeheartedly. I think that having the kids have to read books and understand other people's perspectives is, you know, where we need to move forward from this. But no matter what you decide and no matter what programs are implemented in our schools, it's not going to benefit my children. It might benefit my grandchildren someday, But I really think that Laguna can do better. I really think that we need to remember that kindness needs to be taught at every age. And what's kind to a third grader is totally different than kindness to a ninth grader or even a senior. They're all struggling from different things. They all have different perspectives. We need to teach kindness at all levels. Doing my research and looking around, I know that Laguna's got a lot of money to infiltrate and help, and I know that there's programs coming down the line to support our seniors that are all stressed out over, and I think that we can focus part of our attention on making sure that all of our students feel welcome and that they understand the perspectives outside of our bubble of Laguna Beach. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the blue cards that I have at this point. If anyone didn't see one or get one and wishes to make a comment on items that are not on our agenda, could you please bring it over? Sherry.
Hello, good evening. I just wanna, I'm so impressed with the people that showed up tonight and have such constructive comments for you all to take into consideration and to work with. The district has been through a lot, and I think having the new leadership is really great because I think you guys do really self-reflect on what's going on and how can we make a difference. And from the presentations that I've been of yours, it's a very hands-on approach, and I think that's great. I think that what everybody had to say tonight is really important, but I think there's also still an accountability that has to occur where what is still representing our community through athletics, excuse me, I'm getting upset. If Bruce's comments about athletics mean something, you have to look at what athletics are and how it represents our town, our community, and the people that live here. And as you go through the code of ethics, you need to look at the fact of, what did I miss? You need to look at the fact of what athletics represents, what they represent for our community, and at what point can we help give a teachable lesson. I think that the ideas here were fantastic, but it also needs to take a look at what is that doing going forward? What is the incident? What is the interaction with the people? How are other communities treating us when we go out into the community? And take that into consideration as well. Athletics is a privilege. It's not a right. And we have treated our athletes like they have a right for long, way overdue. Talk to the coaches, talk to the parents, find out if they really think there's equitable time or a consideration or thoughts on how different athletes are treated. Because there is a sense of elitism, and it's gone on up until this incident to the very day that the story broke. And it's unacceptable that we would give so much attention to a few and have their behavior be excused. I was here 2 years ago. Actually, I was here last fall talking to you about an incident that occurred where a kid was sent home because he was the one that felt threatened. He was sent home. The kids that made him feel threatened were told to go back out on the field and practice, and then played in 2 subsequent football games and were celebrated, while this other kid still waited to wonder if any adult had his back. We owe our kids that are mixed into this, that didn't make a good decision, we owe them tools to help them grow, but we don't owe them the right to come back out and play and represent our community within this incident while it's still so fresh. I don't think we owe them that. If they earn it, that's different. But we don't owe anybody anything. You don't owe. It's got to be a privilege. And I think that to continue to make it a right, to continue to have coaches that focus on, hey, I'm going to work with these guys and that's going to make it better. It's not okay. It needs to be different. We need to help the kids, but it needs to look different. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Is there anyone else? Thank you all for your comments, and I think we're all aware of the passion feeling. It is quite evident, and so we appreciate you coming and sharing in public. It's not easy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our reports, and we have just two steps.
Okay, so I'll start with the educational report. So we just started the new semester and, finals, it's a really stressful time for everyone. So everyone made it through it, halfway through. So seniors swapped for government or econ or vice versa, because it's a semester class. And the freshmen swapped health for global studies, and that was switched. So then we had a PEP assembly on February 3rd, and the PEP commissioners, Hunter Mills and now Dylan Wolf, they came up with a really cool idea to take our spin on we believe that we will win and change that into we are one, like we believe that we are one. And it was a really cool thing to get everyone to do that, and that was just another thing that we did to in light of what had happened. And so we have kindness activities and advisories now, where we watch really inspirational videos about how we can deal with bullies and just our path on why these things happen the way they do. And then there was an assembly today, as we said. So that's the educational report. And then the sports report. Breakers Athletics has just completed the Orange Coast League winter season with 4 of our 5 teams qualifying for the CIF playoffs. Girls water polo is undefeated in league and for the season to date. The girls have run their season record 27-0 and recently became the only team in the history of SoCal Championship to win the tournament 4 years in a row. Our girls are working hard as they are preparing to make a run at another CIF championship. Girls basketball just missed qualifying for the playoffs as they battled in the last game of the season for the last available playoff spot and came up just short. While we just missed the playoffs, this was a historic season as we fielded a JV and varsity team for the first time in years. It was great to see the increased participation in our girls program this year. Boys basketball finished strong in league, winning 6 of their last 7 games and finishing in 2nd place. They played Pioneer High at home in the first round of the CIF playoffs tomorrow night. Girls soccer finished league 10-0, capturing the Orange Coast League Championship. The girls are currently number 2 seeded team in the Division 4 playoffs. The girls play at home at 5 p.m. in the first round of the playoffs. And I'd like to add that JV also won 10-0 this season. Boys soccer finished 3rd in league and qualified for the playoffs. They have a wild card game tomorrow in Temecula against Temecula Valley High School. The boys completed in league versus Godinez High School, who is the number 1 ranked team in the country. We have home games next Wednesday for girls water polo at 4 p.m. and boys basketball at 7 p.m. Yeah, thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. Sarah, you're here for the group.
Yes. So, good evening, everyone. Well, at BUCA, we did our survey, as we typically do before we go into negotiations. And there were 4 things that came out on top. The first one being that basically teachers want a good salary that keeps up with the cost of living, that they want benefits to care for themselves and their family, and that they want to be able to meet with their colleagues to plan best instructional practices, and meet with their departments or grade levels. And 4th, they would like to be in their classrooms teaching because they care about their students and their success and their progress academically. And basically, those were the 4 things that came up unanimously on the survey. So we look forward to discussing those more as we go into our negotiations. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's more of an order, CSEA. We also still have our survey out, and I'm going to be very straightforward on this. I've got some very disappointing results coming in. Last year I had over 100 people that responded, and at this point in time I only have 54. And I've asked a few people, point blank, where I keep sending it out, and the button's at the bottom, or it's going out, and I'm getting responses back where people are concerned about their privacy. Then they're also saying that they're concerned about if they put something down, even though it is anonymous, that there may be some kind of backlash to their responses. We've never had that before. I think some of you know CSEA members can be rather outspoken at times, and so I find that a little upsetting, and I don't really know how to put my finger on that, but I want to be upfront and direct with that. In very positive things,
Irene White is sending, I think it's 8 people to the Paraeducator Conference, again this year, and I also will be attending from Dr. Odipo asking me if I would like to go, so I'm very pleased to represent Laguna Beach at the Paraeducator Conference. Elizabeth and I have been busy, Elizabeth Phillips. We attended the Insurance University, we will be attending the Insurance University Part 2. We attended Part 1 last year, that is put on by CSEA, where there is really quite a bit of information. It's a 2-day, very intense program, and I think, as Ms. White knows, I came back with my book that was this thick, and I handed it to her and said, here, you can review what we've learned. It was very intense, and so it's a great opportunity to really get a firsthand knowledge of who knows what's happening in the insurance marketplace, but where anyone could think it might be going at any given time. Elizabeth and I also just recently attended on February 4th in Corona Del Mar High School, where over 300 CSEA leaders attended a leadership workshop for presidents and vice presidents and treasurers, and we brought back all the extra stuff for our other members who could not attend. Now I'd like to speak about something just a little personal myself. I've lived in Laguna over 30 years, as most of you know. And I moved here because I chose to move here, like many people. I used to vacation here, and I have a varied background. I went to 14 different schools before I graduated high school, on the West Coast, East Coast, and I had one experience of going in 1958, so now you know how old I was, in 2nd grade, to a school in Florida, in Miami. We had segregation. And I had been in the West Coast and the East Coast, and we didn't have those issues, okay? When I got there, I was frightened. My mother actually had to go to school and explain to the teacher that we didn't know about all of this from where we lived before. But living in Laguna, we live in our bubble, and I've worked in Manhattan, part of my territory was Harlem. I've never felt this kind of tenseness that people are talking about on this certain issue. And as I said, this is my personal comment. But what I know the district is doing everything they can right now to make sure that this whole feeling that is permeating, like bubbling up, that this sense of some people are entitled, some people have more privilege, you know, we really need to look at that. And we probably even need to look within ourselves. Because, you know, as a district, we do things, and if we think about how we, even at different sites and different things that happen, we might want to stop and say, you know yourself, you know, that thing I used to have it at the bottom of my email, you know yourself, and they teach you that in nursing school, to know who you are first, because then at least you can have the integrity to know what you're about, and you may not be perfect all the time, but at least you can try. And so I ask, you know, I know the district is doing what they need to do and moving forward, but I am one of those people that have experienced it as a little kid, and was really very frightened. And she actually told me there'd be a third world war against the blacks and the whites. And I still remember her name. I won't say it though, because it's a strange name. But anyway, I just ask you to be very cognizant as we move forward on everybody's needs in this community. And thank you.
Thank you. We have representatives from organizations for School Power, PTA. Robin.
Hi, I'm Robin Ranagi, Executive Director for School Power, and I just wanted to stop and really thank the school board and all of our leaders for presenting the initiative to support the well-being of Laguna Beach students. School Power was very honored Saturday night to raise money for that very worthy initiative, and I'm here to tell you that we did not reach our goal, but we exceeded it and raised $158,000, give or take some bid shenanigans that we're working out right now. Looks like it might even be higher than that. So I just thank you to Dr. Valoria. You did a wonderful job. That is not an easy crowd to speak to, and really summed that up and the video with a lot of input from students, and it felt very organic to the kids, and I think that meant a lot to our audience, and it was a beautiful thing to see the whole community coming together in support of our kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Robin. We have about
Hiding out back
here.
here. Okay, hi everyone, happy Valentine's Day. I wanted to start by saying I really appreciate it. I don't think I got to report since our January PTA council meeting. And we had Dustin Gowan and Bridget Beaudry Porter come in. And I just wanted to thank them and thank Dr. Odipo and Yadi for coming in on our February meeting because it was just so impressive, and I'm really grateful that everybody came to share their teachings and how the district is, you know, the teachers, the staff, everybody's integrating. I can't even, I mean, I should be able to explain after all of the presentations because they were phenomenal, but to just actually get a piece of that and to witness it and to be a participant in it was really, it was so important. And I mean, I'm grateful that I got to see it and the PTA PTA presidents got to see it. And I guess I would just like to be on record saying I'd love for parents to start participating and coming to these education workshops the district is putting on. Because, and I know, you know, PTA, we do our own coffee breaks and such, but the district education series and the opportunities you do give to us parents is pretty phenomenal, and I understand they're, you know, lacking of attendance. So I'd like to encourage parents, and that will be my job to try and get that out there as well. So I do want to thank you for that. Coffee break, speaking of, the next one we have is in on March 15th from 8:30 to 10. And that will be at the Hotel Laguna. I know I'll be seeing you guys probably the day before that, but it's on gratitude and mindfulness with Susan Kaiser, Greenland, and she's the author of The Mindful Child. Also, PTA Reflections, I wanted to recap on that. We had 200 entries submitted by our local Laguna Beach students, and about 22 ended up moving on to our 4th district PTA. And we had actually 7 that received awards, and Wyatt Ship, a senior at Laguna Beach High School, will be moving forward to state. So that's pretty impressive to have one of our in our little community here move forward. Top of the World in El Moro had their successful talent shows. Thurston is smack in the middle of Epic Challenge fundraiser, which I know is crazy fun. And all units right now are looking for board nominees. We're going through nominations and probably elections here in March. And I'm super excited that our membership numbers have increased since in the past. Every year we send people to sneak out and get membership. What kind of the offset of that's disappointing, as well as the volunteers. We're just really struggling. So I think across the board, it's just really hard parent involvement to get that moving again, and we're struggling with that as well. I know our PTA leaders, Top of the World, is having a hard time with different, so, you know, I'm not sure where to go with that, but I do want to put the word out again right now, just to any parents being involved, and we're going to try really hard to get that to turn around. And I know at our council meeting as well, we talked briefly about the students and how impressed we are with student involvement, and just hearing these kids tonight, I just personally want to say, I'm always blown away. I'm blown away at what they, you know, what like mindful and respectful opinions they have, and I know that these are some of probably our leaders that are here, but I do hear it, and I see it by all the kids all the way around, and I think one of the comments I've heard most recently is that they want to participate, they want to have an impact, they want to be able to speak their minds, but that sometimes they feel like they're being told by the adults kind of how to go about doing this. And I don't know what kind of form could be created, I have no idea. But just to give them, I mean, I think the power of the students, with the students, when there's certain circumstances, can be pretty strong. I mean, they're gonna be listening to their own peers in a lot of these circumstances. So I don't know what that means, but it's just a personal comment. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
We have, board member comments. Steve, you have a report for anything you'd like to as a rep?
Okay, I visited with the gardeners, Kelly Osborne at Top of the World, and Anicia, and Dr. Meg Kiesinger, and I'm so impressed with what they do. I mean, they try to incorporate so much of what we do. They go through the 4 Cs, they, they structure math lessons, like when I watched the kids were tallying and then making a graph of what vegetables they had, and then they were trying to divide it up evenly. And then they were trying to figure out why they didn't have the same tallies. So they were doing their talking, and it was exciting to see them dig up a radish. And it was like huge, because it was one of those, they were expecting a little red radish like I was, but it was one of those, what are they called, kohlrabi or something, or the Japanese one. It was like as big as a melon. I was proud that Dr. Meg said that she does this Grow Your Own program with many different schools, and she just got contracts, I guess, with Irvine and Tustin. She has some down in San Diego, San Juan, etc. But she really uses ours as like her example, because she's so proud of all that we're doing. And part of it, I mean, it's the grade levels, K-8, but also that we have so much community involved, because she really believes in school and community. And we have a master gardener that actually told them that this was a radish when they saw the leaves, because they thought it was going to be a cucumber. But this person's from UCI, but then a lot of the local people in the garden club raise money for it, and so it's a nice combination. I also, in thinking about cultural awareness, I met with some of the people from sister cities. They were looking at maybe being able to do a teacher exchange with San Jose del Cabo and here, and I don't know how that would work, but they're going next week, and then we're just going to talk about that and see if we could get some kind of exchange going there.
Since I talked so much last time, I'm going to just pass. My love, my good friend.
Let's see, in the last couple of weeks, I attended the Laguna Beach High School PTA meeting. Lance Neal did a great job. He presented to the parents. I thought it was really effective. I attended the SHAP show, which supports graduating class. It was great and inspiring. Mr. Shapiro was excellent. I also am part of Laguna Beach PTA Council, so we always appreciate when district leaders are there presenting. I'm also a member, I'm a director in the Laguna Beach High School Scholarship Foundation, and we are rolling with the applications. We will start planning convocation soon, so I attend that meeting. Kat is the president, so she tells us what to do. Thurston PTA meeting, I'm not sure, I think he was there, the Cyber Cop was there, he was excellent, and the attendance was excellent, it was filled. And I learned so much about apps that I've never heard of. It was overwhelming. My poor kids, I came home with like $50. I have a question about this. He was great though, and he was very approachable. He has a book, so you can buy his book. It was excellent. I went to the 8th grade drama production because I have an 8th grader, and it was great. It's charming and lovely, would be my best term. And I did attend the dinner dance on Saturday at the Ritz-Carlton for School Power. It was wonderful, and the support for the student support specialist was excellent. The video was exceptional. It was such a nice moment to see all those people just give to our schools and support all the students. It was great. And I did go to Keith Hawkins this morning, which was really great, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I will just say this, he had rapt attention in that room. It was filled to the rafters. I was sitting on the step in the corner, and it was silent while he spoke. So it was great. That's it.
I think that that's been the case every time he's come to our schools, whether it's Thurston at the high school, because we have had him here before, and it's always been one of the best received by the students. I think that's one of the reasons that Dr. Gloria knew, of course, well of him to bring him this time, because it's really important to be able to engage with the students and to have them in that rapt attention. That's a real benefit when you're especially trying to deliver really important thoughts. Ken had asked me to go to endowment, but it was canceled, so I didn't meet last Friday. And then I think that we weren't able to have someone go to Community Coalition, so we'll have to catch up with that next time. But I was going to suggest that maybe you could submit the agenda for that meeting, particularly if it's like before we meet, so that, just like we got in our update for curriculum council, so we could just see the topics and then we might have more questions, or we could relate to that. Peggy, did you go, was there a school power
It was not, it was
It was
canceled.
canceled.
Yeah, it was canceled, so I think we're getting ready for the dinner dance,
Right.
yeah.
And I did go to the PTA council as the rep, and I agree, I wanted to say that both times when Alicia has brought in the presentations on the curriculum and the teaching and how things are integrated, what I really find is it's so good for parents to see what a task it is for teachers to teach. And what, especially as this is all evolved, and what's really required to do this job, and it's huge. So when they bring in all their charts and show how they're relating everything to this, and it's impressive, but it's also really informative, and I think it's really good that parents know how much goes into this profession. It's a huge responsibility to educate kids, but it's become really, really challenging and a lot of preparation work. So I think that's very helpful, and I like that we're bringing those presentations to PTA Council. Then again, with the cyber cop at Thurston, I couldn't stay for the whole thing, but I left there feeling overwhelmed with how scary it is for parents to try to protect their children, and to, now that basically the phone is now, since my youngest one is not at that, it was still a phone, and it's now a mini computer, so it's just very daunting for a parent, and following up with that one, he was talking about that kick application.
It was in the paper.
It was just in the paper that they just made an arrest of a man, and that's where he got in touch with the girls, was through that site, because that cyber cop said that day that if they find that on an adult's phone, they're usually dealing with a predator, because it's supposed to be a kid's site, but there are so many, there are so many. And again, it was a great turnout, because it's really good to get that information out to parents, even though it is overwhelming. At the PTA, at the high school PTA meeting, I agree with, Chris was there to speak, and Nicole, but Lance was there. A little bit different, I thought, from my reflection on it, for an athletic director to really, really say, come in and meet with me, I wanna learn about this district, I wanna learn about the students, and how we can improve, and I thought, giving that sense of openness was really beneficial, and I hope that people take him up on it, and go in and talk to him about athletic programs, kind of things that Sherry was saying, that he wants to open himself up to those kind of conversations. There was a student that came and presented about safe rides, and I don't know where that went with that later in that meeting, but that's was one of our alternate student reps, came to the high school PTA. And again, in general, students do a great job when they come. They're articulate, they have definitive points of view, and I think that we really need to use that as a resource. And we have, back in the times when I served on the board with Carl Swartz, Carl was always an advocate for seeking out student opinion and getting and surveying students. And we have done that, we can always do better, we can always do more, but we have in this district done that for a long time. And I think that's it for me. There weren't that many things to attend other than it. So I'll turn it over to you.
Again, the school power event was fantastic. So kudos to Robin and her whole team. I know it takes an army to put that on, and so just I was floored at the response. I know that Andy Crisp was there, who was instrumental in the video, and Andy joked that was the quietest he's ever heard that room. Watching the video, they were really kind of just in awe watching our students and staff speak. So special thanks to the staff that really spent the time to do that, and the students who came in and really kind of wrote their own pieces, and Laura Silver who helped make it a reality. So a lot of people were involved in that. A lot of people way more creative than I, and I'm just thankful we get to work with such amazing people and amazing students. So again, I thought our students are just every day I'm amazed at what they do. So on that note, again, we did have Keith Hawkins' presentation. I won't go into details. I think the students did a fantastic job talking about what he brought and what he will bring. I'm very dedicated to bringing him back in the short term, and to allow that conversation that a lot of people are talking about. How do we support that conversation? How do we allow adults to be empowered to have that conversation in the classroom? So I see Keith as this is not a one-stop, this will be, I know he's already coming back to, he'll be at Thurston twice, over the next several months in terms of June and August, but he'll be back at the high school, so we'll work with Chris to identify some dates, what exactly we'd like to do with that. The students, I went to the first session, stayed for a little bit into the second, and he ends up, and every time I've worked with Keith, it's the same thing, he ends up with just a whole group of kids around him. And they're all wanting to talk to him and talk about their stories and see how they want to be a part of that change. And it's very positive. Keith and I had a quick exchange of words. He's very happy. He loves coming here. He sees he has a lot to offer, and I think our students were part of that as well. Again, talking about our athletic program. Again, thanks to Lance for getting together our kind of athletic leadership group. I know that is an area that he's been trying to focus on and develop within the program, and Chris as well, trying to really empower the leaders on our campus. And the athletes should be held to a higher code of conduct, that's why the code of conduct exists. But it's very clear we need to look at that and have them evaluate what that code of conduct should be for themselves, along with some adult input is important. That's where the coaches come in as well. So I know that Lance has been spending that time at our coaches meeting, having these conversations. They will be ongoing as well. And we are reading and bringing the parents involved in the Leader in Every Walker is one of the areas that Lance is moving forward. And again, bringing everybody into that conversation about what does it mean to be a leader on your sports team, standing up for what's right and doing what's right for kids. The other thing that I can say, we've had a lot going on. This is one of the logos. I think the board has a copy of this that the student representatives were talking about that was displayed at the first pep rally. Again, impressive staff. This was staff generated, and the students have kind of designed what they wanted to say on the outside. And we've had a couple different versions that have gone around. But I think powerful message and really kind of a logo for what it is that our students have been doing over the last several weeks around kindness and will continue to do. So again, a lot of great work going on at the high school in particular. No one's shying away from the steps that we need to take proactively, and I'm happy that we will continue to do that work in the years coming forward and continue that work. So I'll keep it short, it's Valentine's Day.
Who's next?
I'll go fast. I would also like to say that was an amazing event at the dinner dance. We were actually able to secure babysitters this year, and it was an absolute blast. And I don't know how you pulled that off, but well done. Business-wise, we're wrapping up our second interim. We're almost done. We'll be done by the end of this week, at least to have a draft to review. Facilities-wise, we're finalizing our bid tweaks for the Top of the World project that we're intending to do this summer. We're still starting to roll out some of our nutrition services campaign to improve our participation rate. We're providing more updates on that.
Thank you. Okay, well, happy Valentine's Day. Just so you know, the slides from our tonight's presentations are in honor of Valentine's Day. Check the colors out. I do want to talk about some collaboration our teachers have been engaged in. So today was foreign language. Our foreign language teachers were so happy to spend time together. So we're so appreciative of your support. And last week, our VAPA teachers met for visual performing arts, just to, again, create better alignment and make sure everyone knows how we're supporting each other's programs. So thank you for your support with that. I do want to thank El Moro for supporting Jazz Reach at Laguna Beach Live, as you know, has offered to come out and perform on the dates that they are playing. So El Moro hosted them, and we're so thankful to Bridget Bordy-Porter for setting that up. Just two quick advertisements. DLAC is tomorrow night for our English learner families. That'll be up in room 91. And then Weston comes on Thursday. Weston Kieschnick, he's been supporting our teachers in blended learning and reciprocal teaching. We appreciate your support on that. But not only is he going to support our teachers, he's coming out. We're supporting our families, and we're going to record it. So thank you for your support.
And are you sending out a email, a reminder, post of parents?
Yes, sites have been doing.
We've already got one.
Thank you, please.
And just quickly, again, thank you to School Power and the donors for the support of our initiative. It's very meaningful, and was a nice event. And I also wanted to just say kudos to Jenny and her team for the cross-curricular meeting that I attended on last Friday. It's hard to take risks and try new things, but the staff there have really taken that on and made a commitment, and sharing it with each other is even more, it can be a little nerve-wracking. But the teachers were really engaged in it, and it's not just the teachers, the classified staff have really embraced the areas that they're working on as well, which were listening and speaking. They had a bit of a choice, they could work on writing or listening and speaking. And they were meeting in groups to figure out, how can we support that across the school environment. So it was very powerful, and I had a couple teachers come up to me at the end and have really positive feedback, so it's exciting things happening.
Pass that on to your staff, right, Tatiana? Thank you. Okay, we voted to move item 18 up to this time, which is our resolution for implementing PTA Founder's Day. So, I have it that, do you want me to do
Sure.
that?
No, of course. So we obviously want to recognize PTA, amazing work they do on behalf of our students. And Founder's Day is just one of those opportunities that we recognize that amazing work that is ongoing. So come up front and receive your resolution. We won't go through all the whereases, but I think we all are aware of, we're all aware of the amazing work that you do to support our children. And I hope that you get more people continuing to do numbers, because we all know how important it is. And my hope is that you don't have to struggle finding volunteers to do things, because it is one of those things that the value of what you put in is amazing, of what you get out from the kids. And the kids' smiles, for example, I know the challenge is going on right now, the Epic Challenge, looking forward to kind of getting by there this week. But being out there with your students reminds you of how much fun they're having day in and day out in their classrooms, and so much of the support and the thanks goes to you and the PTA, so thank you.
Everybody, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Smile everybody.
Thanks, Ross. Thank you so much.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
It is the 154th anniversary.
Yes, yes, it is amazing, and I do wanna reiterate what you just said, cause I think most of us started very randomly, like not looking to be that leader, looking to participate, and it was just took that one person, so that's what we're trying to encourage as well, and I think that, Peggy and, everybody here that's participated, and Sherry, what you get out is so much greater, it's amazing, so that's, I think, a good reminder for me and for others to just really emphasize that. Take it to the selfish place, right?
You do have ups and downs, so try not to get discouraged.
Oh, no, I know, it's a little bit disheartening, but I don't know, I think we keep going to that positive place, and then we do see the kids, and you get back to that and what PTA started with, advocating for kids, and you get to feel that. It was just, for me, just so invigorating to just see these kids and stuff, so.
And there was an interesting comment on Moral PTA from James, and he said, he was questioning why they were saying they needed, it's like 3 more members, but the goal is to have 1 more than last year. He said that if your enrollment is smaller, don't you take that into consideration, but you still have to get more members than you had the year before.
Yeah,
He said, well, that's just
We have to
the way
have
they do
goals
it.
in PTA, keep it rolling, we're gonna have to change, we just are always like, okay,
So they're feeling like that pressure because they have fewer people, but.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Thank you,
thank you.
Tammy. Thanks,
Yeah.
Tammy.
So we need a motion, Chris.
Oh, that's right, we do. A motion, please? So.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Okay, we have now a public hearing. I would open the public hearing for the Sunshine Proposal with the RUPA for 2017-2018. The Unity Unified Faculty Association and the Unity Unified School District Joint Proposal for a successor collective bargaining agreement. This is on our consent calendar, but this is a public hearing if anyone wishes to speak to this item. I will close the public hearing. Say it the first time that you got it right, okay. And next on our agenda is our consent calendar. Does anyone wish to phone me off?
I don't wanna play anybody, do you want me to come?
Okay.
Do you want us to make it now?
No.
Okay. Just told me.
I know. I was gonna say Peggy was gonna wanna phone me.
No, I'm
fine. Okay. Then I would need a motion to approve items A through O on the consent calendar.
So,
Second. And then I'll. Okay.
so I wanna comment on the contracts, which this particular one happens to be that I like the fact that, the district is overseeing all contracts and that Jason could walk through this contract with me on O, the agreement for special services, and be able to just dig into every aspect of it and understand it. I applaud that, I appreciate that. And he did it, almost as well as a lawyer.
Thank you. I think.
Thank you, just kidding, as a lawyer. That was wrong.
Okay, Steve.
Oh, I just wanted to comment on the, we are sending 4 people to the mindfulness-based stress reduction for teens at Orange County Department of Ed. And the woman who's giving it, we heard one of her students, Dr. Stacy Cooper, at the coalition meeting. And she is also coming to do the date night routines here. So it's a great chance to look at both of these and see both of these women and see if we would like to use them further, like an after-school program or in some other way. So I'm excited about it.
Is there any public comment or question on any items on the consent calendar? Seeing none, then I will ask for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 4-0. We have several information items tonight, and then the first one is an LCAT update on Goal 4.
I'd like to invite Oliver to meet. And we have our ASB president at Thurston Middle School, Max O'Connor, who's been waiting so patiently, and I was like, oh, we should be on within the first 20 minutes, don't worry at all. So I felt really bad. Thanks, Max. It's okay. Well, thank you so much we wanted to talk tonight about LCAP Goal 4, which is specifically about the student connectedness and why it's so important. So we're gonna just quickly talk about these items tonight. Oh, thank you. These 4 items tonight. Oh, thank you. So, we're gonna just talk about why does it matter, what does the data say, and then I'm gonna spend time there and then hand it off to our experts that can talk really deeply about what's happening specifically at Thurston. So, one of the things I think it's important that we talk about is why LCAP Goal 4 is so important. It is ultimately about how students feel in school and are they safe. So it is sometimes about checking items off of a list. Are the Williams policies up in classrooms? And that is true. We've spot checked, they're up. They're supposed to be up, they're up. However, I think more important than that is how do students feel about coming to school and what kind of educational environment are we providing for students? So, okay, so Assess Law came about in 2012. Just as a quick reminder, you're probably well aware of this, but this also brought heightened attention. Seth was a student that had been bullied in school, even arguably by one of his teachers, and he hung himself in his backyard and he died, I think 12 days later. So this law is to protect students like Seth, particularly in for LGBTQ students, but beyond that, how do students feel in school? There are 3 elements of bullying I just want to draw our quick attention to. Just make sure we're all on the same page about definitions, that it is unwanted aggressive behavior. It is about perceived or overt power imbalance, and it is a repetition. It is not a one-time isolated event, it is pervasive. The leading reasons for bullying are race and national origin and peer perception that a student was gay. The impact of bullying on our youth, you can read them there, but bottom line, these are not things that we want for our children, our friends, our children's friends. These are impacts that we have to be mindful about when we develop programs and we think deeply about impacts to students. So as a reminder, 1 in 5, this is national data, but 1 in 5 students does report being bullied in the past year at CBC. But all of that is just background for why, again, this really does matter. School climate is, it is ultimately about what is our impact of the impact of the adults on the students and the learning environment. So WestEd has a great definition. It's a positive school climate that includes caring relationships that are emotionally safe, academically rigorous, but we're engaged in a school and it calls out the school culture of bullying. Quickly, I think it's important to look at our data. How do our students feel? This is a Healthy Kids survey. You'll see that we report high levels of student connectedness. Kids do feel safe at school in 5th and 7th grade, and they report a purpose to life. These are well above Orange County and state levels. You'll see that in grade 9 and 10, students, 50% of our students report high school connectedness, but that increases by the 11th grade. Again, students overwhelmingly do feel safe at school and they report feeling a purpose to life. That is our background to this, but I think it's important that we highlight a school so we're not having a disconnected conversation. So for that reason, Mrs. Salberg is here to join us. So thank you for that.
Great. So one of the things, as I was putting this together, I was trying to figure out how I would even start. And then I saw Chris Hertzfeld had written something, developing a positive school culture is a marathon, not a sprint. It takes constant, relentless, and deliberate actions and cannot be left to chance. And I think that's what we work on really hard in this district. It's what gets us motivated every morning to come back and do it again. I think that we work as a team so that we would graduate kids after going through K-12 or any time that they come in, that our kids are global citizens, that they are aware, that they are kind. I don't think it's any one act that makes a difference. I think it's a message that needs to be repeated frequently, often, in a variety of different ways. At the elementaries, they do things like Random Acts of Kindness Club, Rachel's Challenge, Growth Mindset, PALS, Big Buddies, Little Buddies, Kindness Weeks, Kindness Challenges, Pay It Forward Assembly. So it's all still under the same umbrella, but it's just looking different ways, because every message is going to hit a different kid a different way. At the high school, they have Link Crew, Breaker Nation, which is really trying to teach our students how to cheer appropriately at a game. Sportsmanship lessons that have been school-wide, advisory, that they've implemented lessons about kindness through advisory, and guest speakers like they had today. And I think all of those things make a huge difference, that we work together. It's the same underlying message, kindness, and when you're feeling safe at school, you feel connected at school, all these things make a huge difference. So specifically at Thurston, we try to do it like every great set of parents or every great parent, right? A united message is way more powerful than a divided message. So for us at Thurston, we put everything under the umbrella of SMART. So if we need our students to be connected or feel what's happening on our campus, we would write it under or share it under the topic of making a great decision, be respectful, always be there and ready. So we continue to make these things so that our kids feel like, okay, there's a consistent message. We know what's going to happen. All right, it looks a little different today. Or this week, there and ready might be just being in class and not being late after break. Or it could mean next week, be there and ready and make sure that I have my device charged and I have my earphones as we prepare for CASC. It all depends on where we are at that moment, but we always put it under the umbrella of SMART.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Max O'Connor and I'm currently in 8th grade. I've attended Thurston the past 3 years, which is the longest I've attended one single school. Before Thurston, I had attended 6 different schools across the country, including one in Honduras, where I got a feel for many different environments, and this is why I can truly say that Thurston has a unique environment, especially when it comes to its level of connectedness. Now at Thurston, the level of connectedness is not created by accident. There are certain clubs, programs, electives, and events that are implemented into the curriculum that really create this level of connectedness. And on the board, you can see 8 main components that build this level of connectedness. I'm gonna start out by talking about United in Kindness. Every year at Thurston, we dedicate 1 month theme to being united in kindness to educate students on how to be an upstander and how to help end bullying. Students go to an assembly and they learn about what an upstander is, what a bystander is, and what a bully is. They also learn that by being an upstander, you set a good example and show other kids that you can end bullying and you can make a change and show other victims that have been bullied that they are not alone. All students make a pledge saying that they will be an upstander and they will help end bullying, which creates a caring and connected environment throughout that entire month and on through the entire year, and basically through high school and college. The kids will carry this skill on with them. Web and Wave Rider Day is a day that is held before school starts, where kids go to school to handle all the logistics of like their textbooks and PE clothes, but also so they can reform the relationships that they had with people that they may not have seen over the summer. This day is mainly for 6th graders, because I can remember as a 6th grader, I knew that I was going to start 6th grade with an entire different school, because I was at Moro and I knew like all these top of the world kids were going to be coming into my grade. It was going to be like this huge mixture of students. I had no idea it was like starting another school again. So Web really makes sure that these students are not scared to start school, but excited, and make sure that these students are forming relationships with the students from different schools through an assembly and through groups that are led by student leaders. Next, we have TMS Talks, which are basically TED Talks, but they're for Thurston. And they help kids learn about how to be more prepared, more successful at Thurston, and learn about the culture of Thurston itself. There's been TMS Talks on how to be more prepared, how to be more organized, how to deal with stress, like the culture of Thurston, like what are smart cards and what are they used for, so kids that are new to the school can find out how Thurston runs. And I just gave a TMS talk on having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, which I believe is a really good way on living a healthy life. Next, we also have recognition luncheons, which are to honor students for their hard work and effort. And students, once they feel that they're noticed for the effort that they're putting into their academics, it really gives them an extra boost to want to work harder and achieve more in the future. And they feel like finally people are noticing their hard work, and it really gives them this feeling that makes you want to work harder. PALS, ASB, and Leadership, they're the 3 leadership groups on campus. I am part of ASB and Leadership this year. And the main job of these 3 groups is to make sure that everyone is included at school and everyone is having a great year, a fun year. And they do this by hosting events like a kindness shout out at lunch or a school dance. And they want to make sure everyone knows about the upcoming event so everyone's included. And this happens by making posters, putting the upcoming events on a now board or a marquee, and through the daily announcements that are made so that everyone knows what's going on, so everyone can be included and connected in one single school environment. And being an upstander, I talked about that in the United in Kindness month. But that's just really important in creating that environment where bullying is not tolerated and kids know the right thing to do. And I have seen kids myself stand up for people, and like after you leave that assembly about learning about how to be an upstander, kids know wow, that was really powerful, and they want to be an upstander. And life skills and career inventory. So life skills is a program that all kids go through, and it helps them learn how to deal with peer pressure, drugs, alcohol, lots of things that kids will come across throughout their life, and learning about it early is really helpful in making the right decisions later on in life. And this can really help students live a healthier life and feel like they know what to do when they're faced with peer pressure and stuff. So they don't just succumb to it, but they know how to overcome it and work through it themselves. It gives them those self skills. And finally, we have electives and clubs, which out of all the schools I've been to, I can definitely say that when I went to Thurston, I was like, wow, how do they have this many electives and this many clubs? And I would do as many clubs as possible because they're the best if I had more time. This year I'm doing MUN, Forensic Club, French Club, and Spanish Club, and there are so many more clubs on campus, but just doing those. In every club, you're working with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, so you're forming relationships with all grades, and you're getting to work in an environment where you're learning about something that everyone's really, really interested in, which is why they join that club. But also, it's an after-school activity, so it's a different kind of work method, and it's a different environment of learning and having fun, which really creates different types of relationships with people from all grades. And the electives at school, I definitely coming in, I was kind of overwhelmed. I was like, well, there's a lot of electives, but luckily there's an exploratory wheel and a language wheel in 6th grade, so you get to experience all the types of different electives at school. So then through 7th and 8th grade, you know which electives you want to pursue, which also gives you a better understanding of yourself and what path you might want to take in the future. Definitely being able to learn languages at a young age is really fun. My favorite class at school is Spanish because it's like every day we do something different, and it's like we're socializing all class, but it's in a different language, so that's always really fun for me. And so through the electives at school, not only do you get to do something that is really fun and have a class period that we're like always really excited to go to, but you also get to build relationships with students in that class in a different method than you would solving math problems or writing language arts essay, because in that class the learning styles have to be different for it to fulfill that elective's needs. So I think that's very important. To me, all of these 8 things really summarize that makes Thurston a really inclusive, safe, and happy environment. The students are truly happy. When I came to Thurston, before I came to Thurston, I went to these other schools, sometimes it was like, I had to wake up in the morning and I was like, oh, I have to go to school today. But now when I'm at Thurston, it's like, yes, I get to go to school today. And once you have that feeling, and once you know that you're gonna have a good day, and once you feel like you're happy and safe, and all of these make students, like, there's no way that you can't be included and that you can be left behind or alone, because these all contribute to students being together as one cohesive environment and really experiencing a healthy and happy life, which almost makes it impossible not to be part of the community of Thurston. So I think that's really important, and thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't really think there's anything else to say.
Drop the mic, Sullivan, drop the mic.
Unless, yeah, I was here to take Jenny's job.
Whoa, hey. I was just gonna show some data and say that's what drives us every day, but I think the next slide is just questions. And I just wanna say thank you to Max for just accurately conveying what we do at Thurston every day. I think we work hard, we come back, we work tirelessly to create an environment that is safe and that all students can feel connected. So thank you guys.
Thank you. There are questions? Is there questions?
I have one, do you guys, and for kindness, kind of wrapping from everything I heard tonight, in the surveys and stuff, are they asking students what kindness means to them? Because there's all the different comments, like it's different in different grade levels, and it's, each of the kids were touching on it, everyone's touched on kindness. Do we ask the student body what kindness means to them? Anywhere in the surveys? Because I don't know what the survey says for the kids, like, I don't know what.
I feel like in the survey, if you go back a slide, well, in the California Healthy Kids surveys, sometimes it talks about caring relationships.
Okay.
So I don't know that it specifically talks to kindness.
Age appropriate questions, it's differentiated based on age, because they don't wanna have, the questions need to be obviously written at a level that a certain grade level will understand.
Right.
In terms of defining kindness, no, the Healthy Kids survey doesn't ask a question like that. We are waiting right now, we touched base with Hanover on just yesterday. Our climate survey that they're developing in pilot will be out to us, so we can look at and that question. It's hard to sometimes ask that question. It's somewhat of an open-ended question, but we can always ask what that might mean to them. We'll ask them if there's a way to publish schedule that they can gather that as an opportunity, because you're right, kindness by definition can vary by age group too.
And different people make comments to it.
And what does it mean for a second grader to be kind versus a 12th grader to be kind?
Thank you.
Alicia, I had a question, because I need a better understanding of power imbalance.
Okay, that's a great thing to ask, and that is one of the most important definitions. It's that somebody in a relationship of two, somebody has more power. So in a healthy relationship, power is shared, but in an unhealthy relationship, someone uses power to hold power from the other person, right? So
And that could be the same if it wasn't two, but a larger group?
it can be particularly for girls in social situations, absolutely.
Okay. And because over the years, I've definitely heard that with girls, that it's harder to see what's going on because it's done more quietly. And where you can find maybe the more overt physical aggressive behavior, not as much with girls. So yeah, it's harder to.
And digital has been,
Yeah,
cyber
digital
has been
adds to that.
more challenging.
And the other is, as we look at all students and we address the bullying, it's also going to benefit the person who's doing the bullying. Because those same qualities of affecting their self-esteem and their schoolwork, that it's usually, they're not happy either. And that's what I think the research has shown, is that so that will.
So the keys of what they mentioned in terms of connecting the kids, all kids to campus, have positive results for all students. Those that may be bullied or be predisposed to that because of that relationship, so.
And I know that that's what we work on in this district, rather than just trying to find a way to have them leave our district, that we try to help them and resolve the troubles. Thank you.
So on the board, there's some more upcoming, this is an LCAP update. So there'll be, this is one of our goals, so again, more discussions that we'll be having in the future, and some that we've already had, curriculum council, obviously the area that talks about curriculum instruction, but there'll be some future more that we'll continue to share out, so.
Thank you. Now we have a presentation on the implementation of full-day kindergarten in Laguna Beach for the 2017-2018 school year.
Mr. Duddy and Mr. Conlon are gonna join me. Thank you so much, board, for your support of full-day kindergarten. So we'd like to talk with you about three main next steps. We're going to share the presentation of this role. Let's go back. Thank you. So what are the indicators that this is a desire within the community? What are the benefits of full-day kindergarten, and how do we plan to implement and roll out? So that's where we begin. Mr. Duddy is gonna kick us off tonight.
Okay, so what are the indicators that our students and our district would benefit from a full-day kindergarten program? And one of the indicators is the Early Developmental Index, or the EDI. And so a little background on the Early Developmental Index is it's a survey of child care providers, preschool teachers, and kindergarten teachers in our geographic area. And they answer the same set of questions about readiness for the students in their programs. And then the index compiles all that information, and it gives some indicators on how the students are doing and how ready they are for school. So this is an opportunity to reflect on the development of children entering school and to consider and plan for their optimal early development, school transitions, and future needs. It also gives us baseline data to talk about children in a geographic area and how they're faring. And then finally, it provides data about the first 5 years of children's lives that allow stakeholders to see how their services and service systems can be improved to prepare children for success in school. So that's the background on it. And then if you turn to page 6 in your board packet, it looks like this. It doesn't necessarily look like that picture up there. It's page 6. It has all the green, red, and yellow lines on it. It's in the extra packet that was given. Yeah, the EDI packet. Page 6. So there's lots of good news in the index. We have the children in our geographic area, their physical readiness for school is very high. They're not reporting the teachers are not reporting a lot of anxious or fearful behavior at this age. We see that changes over time. And also, students' basic literacy and numeracy skills are also very high. But there were two places where we all were kind of scratching our head, and that was gross and fine motor skills, that's the very top, and communication skills and general knowledge. These are two areas that we can improve in. And we try to figure out, what the heck? Why are our children, who are so strong in certain areas, why would they be weak in these two areas? And so we've come up with a couple ideas. Number one, technology. A lot of kids are doing this, swiping and staring, instead of the coloring and the writing and the things that might have been more prevalent in earlier times. So that's for the fine motor. This geographic area is not always great to go outside and play in front of your house. So there's dangerous streets, there's on hills and things like that. We have great parks and things like that. Again, some kids might be opting to sit and watch things and interact with technology versus getting outside and running around and playing. And then in the area of communication, those same things would impact communication skills. Instead of interacting with people, they might be interacting with technology, and parents are interacting with technology more and not having those conversations with their little ones. Those are some assumptions, but I think there can be some correlation made there in those two areas of weakness. So, with a full day program, we have more time to work on fine motor skills with our Handwriting Without Tears program. In a half-day program, it's hard to fit all these things in, and so we can have more time for the kids working on their pencil grip, working on developing all the letters, working on developing all the numbers, and really using the program with fidelity. That would be one thing. And then we also don't want to make our kindergarten program so academic that the children are sitting all the time. We would also want them doing a lot of social interaction, a lot of play on the playground, a lot of structured play, so they can learn how to communicate, take turns, and really interact with one another. So that's some indicators. And then on the next slide, we've also heard lots of feedback within the community from all of these groups. Was that your slide? Oh, okay. Within the community, we've had lots of feedback during our LCAP advisory meeting, from parents on the school site council. Staff members have been asking for this. They asked for it they started bringing it up a while back, years ago. And PTA has brought up the possibility. And then, of course, we've had informal conversations and emails coming through asking us about that. I do want to add one thing. We are just focusing on kindergarten when we look at this data. We're not necessarily including our transitional kindergarten programs in the full day.
So Mr. Duddy did cover a lot of my topic, which is so appreciated.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. However, I do just want to say that Kate Kinsella is one of the big thinkers around language in education, and she says that in order to be in school, we are all academic English learners, and so to broaden our day in kindergarten means our kids get more time in the standards, and the kinder standards are quite rigorous, and Mr. Duddy and Mr. Conlon's teachers have struggled with how do I meet the standards within this instructional day. It does allow us a broader opportunity to do so. I just covered my whole next slide. However, it's so nice to have the full support of the community and the teachers around us, so thank you for that. And Mr. Conlon is going to walk us through our next steps.
Yes, good evening. So with your approval this evening, the biggest piece, first and foremost, is getting the information out to the parents, because we do know that if you have a preschool age child, that registration for the coming year is happening in the next week or two. So we already have plans in place with it being approved to move and get that information out, sharing how we're going to do it. So again, a lot of outreach to parents. We've already met with the teachers preliminarily, just to kind of have them be part of the process of the planning, all the logistics that goes into extending a program to full day. And just dealing with from curriculum to staffing to facilities and just even furniture. So we've got a lot of balls in the air. But again, first and foremost, our next steps, it's really all about getting the word out to parents and then just beginning to take a look at how we want the schedule to be. Possibly slightly different, maybe a few minutes about the later start time to alleviate some of the pressure of traffic at El Moro, knowing that everyone will now be coming at at one time in the day. So there's a lot of logistics that have to work through it, but the biggest piece, we're really excited because we know ultimately this is going to benefit the students so much, and it's going to be amazing. But we'll have a lot of work to do this spring in preparation. Again, with your approval, we're very excited to bring this to our communities and looking forward to see how many more students we get to enroll as kindergartners. So that's going to be an interesting time as the data comes in and the enrollments and registrations begin. So thank you all very much. We appreciate your listening to us and entertaining the idea.
As part of what you did this year, did you talk to parents of kindergartners now, ask what they thought about it to get more?
Absolutely, I've definitely had conversations, and I had parents that would actually bring it up, and just sort of ask about if something we've been entertaining, and not even more, from the perspective of they love the idea of kind of the all day, having the child, just knowing there's just so many, there's so much that their child can benefit from having a structured, academic setting for a full day, not just the prospect from a babysitting perspective.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Same for you, President, you asked parents, I'm just curious.
Well, ironically, all the parents on my school advisory committee are very strongly in favor of full day kindergarten. They all have kindergarten students, and yes, they've been asking. There's been questions throughout, and so that feedback that we're getting is, why aren't we looking at that, or are we looking at that?
More like, why haven't we done it?
I've been hearing it since I walked in the door, day one from parents, from teachers, asking about, is this something that we would entertain? And I always said, we definitely would. It's just there's a lot that goes into it, but it's something that I've continued to bring up to Darlene and to Alicia, and saying this is a need, and this. So what can we do to achieve it?
It was one of the first things that Chris Betty actually mentioned to me back in May, before I even actually started officially, was they're going to want to talk about full day kindergarten. So I appreciate that heads up, and I think it's taken us some time to have that conversation.
Sherry talked about it years ago.
Well, I was gonna say, it came up
12 years
it came
ago.
up 4 years ago, it was a strong question in the debate. It was. 4 years ago now, I think. So it's a topic, and I've put all four of my kids through private kindergarten. For all of the reasons that they're talking about, wanting more rigor, wanting a more diverse day for my kid, wanting them to be able to do a lot of different things. So it's a long time coming. Community would be overwhelmingly supportive of it.
I think that was Governor Brown mentioned going full day kindergarten. How many districts in the state do you know? Or
About 2/3 of the state is extended or full day.
2/3?
2/3. Half day programs are minority. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, was there another question? Yes.
Okay,
I'm Ann Herzog, I'm the preschool director down at the Western Preschool. My parents will overwhelmingly welcome the full day kinder.
I know, I'm sorry. We're not supposed to see you.
Okay, sorry. My families will overwhelmingly welcome a full day kinder, in my opinion, and the ones, I sent out an email and invited them all to attend to ask questions, but it's Valentine's Day and they've got little ones that are crashing from a sugar high at school. My one concern, and I hear a lot about, I'm part of the task force with the EDI, I understand the gross and the fine motor deficiencies and the general communication and all of that. The full day kindergarten, a quality full day kindergarten, the National Association of the Education of Young Children says a quality kindergarten program isn't just the rigors of academics. It's not just more time spent in handwriting without tears, which we also do in a workbook. It's more time for play, more time for experiential learning. They need to be outside running on that playground more than 20 or 30 minutes. They need a solid hour at a minimum to play and experience our environment and collaborate and be creative, use their imaginations and just dive in. They are older than preschool, but they're still learning, and if we expand this day, I just want to implore you to be looking at the whole child, not just the academic rigor and stuff in the standards.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I tried to touch on that in there. We have hands-on science labs. We have a big part of that is gonna be social facilitation out on the playground. And as we all know, most kindergartners can't sit still for that long anyway, so we need to give them small chunks of academics and mix it in with some movement, some socialization, some play as they transition to each of the different academic areas. But surely in the 3 hours that we have, it's hard to do all those things.
I totally understand.
And so that's why we're looking to extend the day to be, and yes, we're definitely taking those kids. And you know, I talk about handwriting without tears for the fine motor skills. That's just one aspect where they're not gonna be doing that all day long. It's just a short part of the day, but it would be done.
Only so many times a teacher can sing that man.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just, but if we have that extended time, we can build that short burst of that in regularly throughout the school week versus trying to figure out where it's gonna fit in between PE, science, math, reading, language arts, all that good stuff that we're doing now.
Understood.
Yeah.
If I may, I just.
Hold on, let Ann finish, we have 3 minutes, she got hijacked, so.
Oh, sorry. I feel hijacked. No, I just wanted to make sure, you know, that our voices are heard, that the whole day program is looking at the whole child and not just focusing on the academics and the rigor of the state standards. And Common Core, at its core, in my belief, is what we do at preschool. We take a theme and it touches our science, it touches our art, it touches our playground play, it touches everything, so what we're doing, and to carry that truly into kindergarten, a full day program would be fantastic, because it would really be able to, the kids could really touch on every area in that time.
Thanks, thank you. When will this, I know it's an information item, when will it come back?
Doesn't come back for action.
Any other public comment?
I have a comment. Sure. Thank you. I actually am raising 3 boys, 7th grader and a 5th grader, and then I have a preschooler that's been a Presbyterian for 3 years. He is so ready for a full day of kindergarten, and I'm begging you. The Presbyterian is fabulous. So by the time they get to kindergarten for a half a day, it's, you know, he definitely needs a full day of kindergarten. And I cannot say enough good about top of the world school. My boys are, and one is at Thurston, they're doing great. But the only weakness I see in the school district, I actually raised 2 children of my own, these are my grandkids, is the half day kindergarten. So I'm begging you. Thank you. Michelle Nelson, thank you.
Michelle Nelson, thank you. Sharon?
Sorry, do you want me to
Sorry, I never come necessarily knowing what I'm gonna say, which is probably why I almost choked myself earlier, so I do apologize for that. Full day kindergarten, and one of the things I was gonna ask maybe to be considered was starting the kids then with collaboration and community service through the collaboration. You know, somebody said fine motor skills, and I immediately thought of the beading, and I thought, oh no, that's the big fat beads and the chunky thing. And then I thought, well, what if they did smaller beads on smaller needles and smaller thread, and they were making a bracelet that they would then turn around and give to the pals that are going to give to the homeless people, or something where it starts to bring everything together in full circle, and teaching our young kids right away what it means to be more giving of themselves. And maybe that will also help address some of the perspective that some of our kids have, because they are in a bubble and they don't get to see, you know, if a parent doesn't expose them to the outside world, this is what they get. And it's not a bad thing, it's great, but when they go out into the world after that, it is difficult sometimes for them to understand that, oh, wait a minute, it's not all about me or what I need or what my school can give me. So if we can do something like that with an all-day kindergarten where it shows them immediately how to work together beyond themselves, it would be a great use of time as well. So
Thank you. Any other comments? You have,
I was just gonna agree with Sheila. I know from training before that, you know, age 0 to 5, kids are egocentric. But at 5 and 6 through age 8 is the best time to introduce kids to different cultures. After that, they start to have their own opinions. And I remember what really made a strong impression on me at UCI. We looked at groups of kids that were watching Native Americans in Alaska, and they were eating like the eyes of a seal, and the little kids were saying, "Oh, I get it, that's like ice cream, I get it, oh, that's cool." And then they showed it to like 5th graders, and they were, "Oh, that's gross, oh, how could they do that?" But that was just stuck in my mind, but I know from research that you hit kids younger, and that's what consequences. Not that they can't do it when they're older, but so that could go into that little curriculum too.
Any other comments or questions for Alicia or the principals? Our next information item is a report on the Joint Fiscal Management Committee report from Jeff.
Thank you, President Vickers. It was a great first meeting for me. We were able to establish kind of what the role and purpose of the committee was, and I thought that was important for me to get that perspective, and so that we knew what our goals would be. And thank you to LaBufa and CSEA and Margaret, thank you for being there. And, I think the transparency piece and then the sharing of information is what makes that committee strong, so we're going to continue that going forward. I went over the governor's state budget proposal and then our last 2 financial reports, being the first interim and our audit prior to that. Some takeaways, and I won't spend too much time because we're going to have a May revision on that governor's proposal, but some things that we know that aren't going to change, or likely not going to change, are going to be our step and column costs, which is an increased cost to our district that we have to consider moving forward, and the STRS and PERS, or the employee pension rates. Just to give everyone a perspective on what we're looking at, next year alone, there's going to be roughly $1 million increase that we will have to contribute from our district general fund to support those programs. And that's every district throughout the state that's going to be hit with that. By 2021, it's going to double from what we pay today. So these are serious things, and we're looking at even extending.
4 years.
It's 4 years. So today, this year, we spent a little less than $5 million. By 2021, it's over $8.5 million, based on the rates that have been issued out. So that assumes no change in staffing at all. But we are very strong financially, and it's something that working through that committee and working with our staff here and our board, we want to maintain that fiscal strength. So it was a really positive meeting, and I think we're better suited than most districts, especially in the county, as I heard from our other districts at our CBO meeting today. And look forward to the future meetings and reporting back any information and new information we get.
Thank you. I'm sure other districts set those numbers on the pension funds project.
Yeah.
Because they won't be able to afford it.
Right, and one of the things that came up more recently is the LCFF funding formula doesn't take into consideration size of your school district when you're doling out supplemental funds. And that's one of the areas that many of those districts are looking at who might be larger in size, example maybe Irvine, who may be getting less dollars than districts with that are supplemental funded, have a lot more supplemental dollars. And so they're poised, those larger districts are even in a worst case scenario that actually get less supplemental because they're not getting enough money. So there is a lot of conversation happening at the state levels. I actually have a meeting on Friday up in Sacramento to kind of hear about what are those things that are happening around this topic in particular, because it can't be simply we're fully funding LCFF so it gets addressed in the LCFF funding formula, because it doesn't, the LCFF funding formula doesn't take into consideration size of districts and what you're actually getting. And so it will start placing a much heavier burden on some of our neighboring districts first, but it is also, as Jeff pointed out, something that we'll be having to look out in the out years as well and to keep in consideration so that we can maintain our fiscal prudency and solvency. So we'll keep you informed. So I appreciate Jeff doing that work as well.
Any questions for Jeff on this report? I appreciate that you're recognizing the benefit of this, because the JFMC was started in 1996, coming out of our financial crisis and salary reduction, which was huge. And the impact on a district when you need to do that is so huge and so lasting that that's, there was really a sense of from our employees that they could trust. And that has been strongly reestablished, but it's really important that, I'm appreciative you recognize that, we need to continue that.
No such thing as over communicating budget.
No, there's not, and it isn't a real simple thing to understand. And I think that's really. Overview.
Margaret, I was just gonna mention that, as I said, Elizabeth and I were at this leadership meeting with 300 other people, and when we speak freely about the fact that we have such a committee, and that the associations both have seats or are on the committee, and can openly ask questions and review, they're like, what? You do what? And how do you know that? And it's because there is this committee, and we have our committee members that go, and it's both associations openly discussing along with administration, so that we clearly understand where the funds are going. And that helps really as we disseminate that information back to our people here. But more so, it really puts Laguna Beach in a light that we have so many things that are so transparent that other districts perhaps don't have. So I commend you. It was an excellent first time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, our next information item are first readings of the policies, and if you remember, we took D, E, and F off, and we'll bring them back in a future meeting. So we have our first policy on the first reading is comprehensive safety plan. Are there any comments or questions?
Yeah, I just give a real brief on all three, and then we'll take questions. With board policy 0450, it's simply a new policy for us that we haven't had on the books. We're bringing our safety plans to you tonight for action. It would be good to have a policy that goes for that action. So it's time for a first read, recommended for second read, but it again comes from the CSBA gamut language that we utilize. So the 1240 volunteer assistance, we have a board policy 1005 that was adopted in 2000. We are moving forward with this, which will bring us into alignment with current requirements and regulations. There will be more conversation related to administrative regulations that will accompany this policy that will allow us to ensure that the students are in an environment that is safe and that we're following the procedures that are set forth in education code on screening the volunteers at different levels depending on their exposure and working with our students. So that will be coming forth again for second read, and then once we get that done, we'll be bringing our administrative regulation in line with that. And there'll be a lot of work with that. Lisa and Jeff and Shannon will be working with our principals, with our PTAs, to help inform them as to what the requirements are and how we can best meet those requirements, whether it's related to the fingerprinting requirements for certain volunteers, how we'll be utilizing the Raptors that will be coming forward at another board meeting as well. So that's 1240. And then 5141.21 is the again, we're moving that one out of order. It's the wrong number in the old policy, so it'll have the correct number, and it's with the new regulations. So yeah, we've had an entire work around that, and how we're expected to required to make it provide the support that we're supposed to for our students. So happy to take any questions on any of those three.
On EP 1240, on the fifth paragraph, first sentence, volunteer work will be limited to projects that do not replace the normal duties of classified staff. Is that contractual? Is that why that's in there, or
Yes.
is that why?
Well, it's in the CSBA sample, but because that is generally law, that you can't hire or you can't utilize the services of volunteers in lieu of jobs you would have for classified staff or even teaching staff.
Any other questions? So you can forward bring it to the first reading. Any public comments or questions on these three policies? Okay, we'll go back to second reading. We did 18, moving that up, and so we have action item 19, approval of comprehensive school safety plans, March 2017 to February 2018, and this is
So before you is, we completely updated our safety plans, and I wanna highlight the word comprehensive because these aren't just emergency safety plans, this actually covers quite a bit, and you can tell just by the table of contents. What this is a reflection of, and I think accurately so, is the great work that our sites do, and thanks to our principals and the work that they put in regarding safety, and that's not just with the drills that they perform, it covers the gamut of potential emergencies, but also committing to our safety committee, which is a completely volunteer-run committee where we have multiple members from each site, where we come in, review safety plans, review procedures, even potential new technologies or safety ideas, that is then disseminated through that group back to all the sites where they are able to talk about it and then bring information back to us. And thank you, Dr. Soto, because she chairs that for us, and we've had great attendance on all of our meetings, and I think it's been incredibly valuable for us. And I think you could tell just from how updated the safety plan is from last year. A lot of the things that are in here do reflect current practice, and that was the intent, is we have an old plan that we kept bringing back in years past, and this is more accurate to what we actually do. In addition, it has updated forms and checklists that will be important if we ever do experience any of these potential emergencies. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
No, I was just impressed. Took a long time to read through all that, I thought you guys took all the time to put it together that I needed to read it, and
And I should say, the police department also reviews these annually with us. So, in conjunction with our police team and fire team who help and participate in our drills, we're really making a lot of improvements to what I already considered good safety practices, but we're continuously improving.
I just wanted to know, you don't need to do it tonight, but I was curious who was on the committee. Because I know this page has the, like you have the ones you need to have and you have optional. So actually, I was mainly curious if you had students. If you, at this time you had students on it or not.
I don't believe we did. Dr. Soto, do we have any student participation?
We don't have students at this time, but we do have 2 representatives from each school site, both the classified and certificated member from each, as well as district staff members. But next year, what we're looking forward to do is not only incorporating students that would be from each school site as well, but also possibly revisiting the members that are on that committee to see if we need to be more inclusive.
And I believe Chris raised his hand, but I believe on his school site council group, you actually have 2 students that are there representing, so they are a part of the plan, so they do have some approval actually rights related to the plan, because school site councils have to approve all these plans prior to them coming to you, to the board.
And just, I was just curious, if, I don't remember where I didn't mark it, but I referenced the fact that, like, everybody needs to read these. So what system do you use to account for that?
Start at school.
And
the principals can probably speak more specific to each one of their processes, but it's really up to them the best time that they can hand them out and disseminate them to their staff.
I appreciate the fact that it emphasized that it's a document that needs to be read, so it's not something you take up and say, okay, we've got the situation, so let me look it up. That it needs to be
It's not a grab and go.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a grab and go.
That is also why it's important to update it annually, because as you know, things change,
Oh, they do.
systems change, contacts change, so that's why we bring this back to
Well,
every year.
isn't that the one you mentioned with the run, okay,
Run
high
height.
run height, with a different concept, so, for the safety of this. Anyway, that's, it was gonna be on as a consent, and I asked that we move it to action because I wanted to give, attention to it with all the work that went into it, and because there have been some questions asked of what, how we're addressing all these issues, and this is for a lot of work, thank you. We need a motion. Second. And I probably shouldn't have that before we did on that discussion, right?
I got rid of that, sorry.
I didn't realize it's action meeting. It is my fault. Any other questions or comments? Here's a vote, please, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. Thank you. Okay, next we have our new item, which is request for items for future meetings, future topics, or general comments that don't go under the actual board reps.
Should I start? Sure. Okay, so I
would like to see if we can have some standards about creating more opportunities for communication with teachers, staff, parents, particularly with athletics, coaches, students, and parents. So we have really clear communication. We have great communication from most of the schools where you get a weekly update. Because we're only as good parents, students, as the information we receive. And if we're not alerted to things, or we know schedules, or we know it's, but I also think it applies to athletes, families, that coaches, we have Lance, who's such a great athletic director, we can all have a trickle-down communication where everyone feels informed, they're prepared for what's coming ahead, we set key expectations, so everyone's kind of on the same page. And I feel like those standards would be something that could be really investigated by staff to make sure that we are clear in all areas, not just what's going on next week.
More uniform standards, so
Yeah, for
and that'd be
communication.
something I'm sure that Lance could work on,
Right,
that,
Lance will start working on the coaches handbook, so this is
right, that
perfect.
he hears out
Right.
from us, that we're looking for that to increase that, so that there's a common understanding, like
Right.
all coaches will address these items
correct,
with their teams.
correct.
And there's.
Do all parents know we're working on the coaches handbook?
Right.
Probably not, but it would be nice to let people know what we're doing. I think it just sets great expectations out there among, and with students as well, that students know what's going on.
But we're not asking Lance to be one communication
No,
person,
I'm
right?
talking
You're
about
asking-
all communication.
Yeah, you're talking about coach, but
Coaches,
we're talking about
sports,
coaches giving
sports,
I'll make sure
school
this stuff isn't
sites.
going to Lance.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Lisa
Lance
was-
has set the
Lisa
standards.
was tasked with that
Standard.
Yeah.
communication, and then we put it on the back burner, but, I mean, that was general, right? We had a couple meetings, and that's all.
Oh, yes.
No,
I didn't know you were referencing the committee, yes.
Yeah, but we didn't really get that far into it, so with other things.
Clear communication is great it's effective for setting those standards, informing people, having things not turn around as a big lightning rod or something, because you're informed.
What, but I would just add to that, I really think, now that you're saying that we have something that's common, as an expectation, it doesn't matter what sport it is, that it's.
It's across the board.
It is,
Yes,
and then to communicate that.
yes.
You were gonna say
I can change it.
So for me, in an effort just to make sure that I'm in the right direction, in its most simple format, are we good to go on that, so kind of consensus?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see what the communication is across the board, right, but this is really for coaches.
Even school site, you're saying.
Yeah, like just what that is, but then for coaches really, it can be dark if you don't have a relationship. If you're not going and seeking it, I don't think there's a lot that comes outside of maybe an annual meeting or something.
Okay.
That'd be great. And then tying to communication, I'd like a consensus, when we had our last governance meeting, the idea was, get on board, that we'd have another one, and that one ties communication as a tool, which is like the incident that happened, how we utilize parents, how we utilize our networks and stuff, and disseminating communication, the leaders and parent leaders as well as student leaders as well, right? But I would like to have, I know it's good to have once a year governance, and then it's good to have when you have a board member governance, and so,
Check in.
yeah, check in, and so that we can make sure that we tie in this communication piece as in part of that.
We did agree that we would check back in, so I apologize, it's something we did have a January check-in. So we have an opportunity to have another check-in, I think, in next month, we'll do that.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll set that on the board.
I would just like to look into ways that we can have students involved more in decision making. I think we're saying we have, maybe more in the past than we do now, and that we're giving students more of a voice.
Jim, this isn't new business, this is curiosity.
It's a general comment.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah, and so I've gotten a lot more emails on either joining in a lawsuit, not as a participant, but a brief as a board would have a resolution to stand for it. I've got one that was like for research on equality, which you answer all these questions, won't pay you, that one's weird, I'll bring to Jason. But there's some of them it's easy to say, this, this is not in my preview, right? But other things, I'm like, how do we, maybe this goes back to the governance thing too, but when we get these emails that ask for our support of like a greater equality of all students in California, United States, whatever it might be, how do we go about, since we can only meet here, how do we go about talking about that, right, since we're not, right, would it be a call into the
This would be an
president?
And it's an opportunity, or I would suggest that you submit it so that, and then it can go in a weekly update, so we have the information.
And then Jan and I can review it for agenda appropriateness, and then determine placement on the agenda, if it's appropriate, if it's within our purview, we can do that.
Okay, and then what if it's something that comes that we feel very, very passionate about? And we'd like to have a resolution where we talk about that here, we can still just go through that, with a note of this is like, I just read this, I'm really passionate about this, like, what would,
I guess if you submit it, then you put a footnote on there, I'm really passionate about this.
That's what I mean, like, yeah,
Take no for an answer.
I've got one of them that just kind of come and I'm like, right, like, I don't see how that ties us, but some of them I've gotten recently. And I don't know if it's because the topics became, the topics came up and outside of our bubble, right, that people started reaching out.
There's that one Supreme Court brief that just came.
That one came to everybody,
Yeah, and so I'm wondering about that, this one was on.
Yeah, I think our protocol would be, it would
That's-
come to myself or
You
Jan,
did that one too.
come to one of us, and the two of us would sit down and we'd do agenda prep and talk about whether it's appropriate, number one, for the board, if it's within the purview of the board, that would be this decision that I would be a part of, president.
Right.
And then, if it is, then we could look to put it on the agenda at some point in the future to have a discussion, if there's an action resolution, what that might look like. If it's not within the purview of the board, obviously, I would need communication back that, we've got a consultant or whatever it might be to determine if it is existing, so. I think the best way to bring it would be to hand it to me, and then Jan and I can talk about it as again, using our bylaws and protocol that would fall in place.
Does that make sense? That makes perfect sense, and then with no question stupid, I give my son repeats that from Thurston all the time, there is no question. And I think Ms. Salzberg says that quite often on her morning talks to the kids, to remind them. When there's a vendor who reaches out to us, whether we know whether they've been considered by staff or they haven't been considered by staff, would we do the same thing and just send it to you, or would we send it to whoever appropriate? Like, responding to vendors is not my favorite thing, let's say I just respond to vendors saying, no, it's inappropriate for you to contact me, right? To you. Email,
I
just.
get at least 3 a day from vendors, yeah.
Well, it's when they write to all of us, and they write to all of us, right? Oh, we'd like to come.
They do,
Yeah, right.
Every program is great.
Yeah, everyone, and it's like, what?
I'm sure Alicia gets a few.
Don't come here, this is where you start, this is where you start, so, but I just wanna make sure, and so if we all just send it to you, you just.
That's fine,
they're
yeah. Just probably assume I get them, but in cases where you wanna double check, please feel free, I'm fine with that.
Okay, well, if you're copied on it, obviously, it wouldn't
Of
say.
course, but you won't know, most of the time they won't let you know who they're emailing, so
Right, right.
feel free to send it my way, and then I can forward it off to staff, if it's appropriate to what we're looking for.
That's helpful.
Yeah, this is under general comments, just because I've been trying to pay attention to a lot that's going on social media recently, and it's really been astonishing to me, but also it's a lot of dismay over adults. The comments, the language, the vindictiveness of the adults, and then we talk a lot about working with our students, and I don't know, we can't control that, but if the students are seeing these same kind of things, the modeling message is really discouraging, because there's a lot of cruel, mean things being said and judgments being made, and it really brought it to the forefront for me that seems that we have a lot of adults who are very quick to make a decision or a judgment without information. They don't have information, and they can't seem to accept the fact that one of our highest priorities is protect students' confidentiality and privacy, and that is a driving force, and that I just wanted to say that because I think they need to improve. I think the adults that are doing that really need to shape up. It's a shared responsibility. I mean, obviously, for me personally, a lot of it goes within the home, it's a parent responsibility, but when I see this, social media is a little scary on this, level, but how we can, there's no context except a lot of meanness. So, our students are actually doing much better.
Well, and I think, and principals can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you guys talk about actual trolling and any of the messages when you're talking to the kids about trolling, I wanna say, like, kids first came, I think it was in Thursday when they first started talking about what trolling was and they could define it.
Talking about that, so it's just.
No, I just meant that they will do that, they'll come out to just say something nasty and hope to get response. And I think that our
And then
kids
you just get
will
more
show,
response back.
yeah, and our kids though show a higher level of it, not talking about my dining room table, but listening to other kids, right? They get what that is, and I wanna say, like, there's around sometime in Thurston, when they would start talking about actually defining as trolling, they're just trying to get a reaction. And I thought, who's teaching them that? Because I know I didn't teach my kids that, I was really aware of it, right? And so I think that our student bodies has behaved very well in the same social media on the same issues, but some of the adults have. We're just looking for, making judgment and looking for feedback. Yeah, I know it's sad to see.
Okay, next is move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Really, you're gonna.
They're voting back there.